It might surprise you, but your Monstera can absolutely thrive living in just water. Yes, it's a little known fact that plants don't actually need soil to survive. It might sound balmy to you, but they will happily live in water, and your Monstera is no different. And I'm not breaking new ground here or anything. Hydroponics has been around for, well, I don't actually know how long, but just know it's a very long time, and you can make some pretty spectacular centerpieces of plants living in just water, provided you follow a few simple steps. And that's exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to make a marvellous Monstera centerpiece using a glass vase and some stones that I'll be proud to show off to all my friends and family, or anyone that will listen. And I'll give you all the tips and tricks you need to help you not make a mess of it all. You see, I've done this before. Last year I made a similar thing with my snake plant, and there are a few things I wish I'd done differently that I know now not to do. And it can all be done just as easily with a Monstera. I'm pretty excited because I think it can look even more spectacular than the snake plant. And thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this very video. But more on them in a jiffy. Now you might be sat there on your sofa thinking, but Mr. Sheffield, what about root rot? And to that I say there is no need to fret, my plant friend. Most folks get this mixed up about plants, including yours truly not so long ago. We hear about the horrors of root rot and get spooked about giving our little green misters too much water. But the thing is, root rot is caused by a lack of oxygen around the root ball. That's it. It has a fancy name too, anaerobia. Just like you and me, your plant needs oxygen to survive. Without it, the roots go black, mushy, rot and die off, and the whole thing becomes an unpleasant mess. And this usually happens when the soil remains waterlogged for too long, with repeated watering when the soil is already wet. It's the combo of water and soil that does the damage. It turns the roots anaerobic. Now keep a plant in just water and the roots have oxygen in the water to use, provided we freshen it up by changing it weekly, but more on that in a jiffy. So be rest assured, my plant friend, you won't kill your Monstera by doing this. I mean, have you ever propagated a plant in water, forgotten about it, and let it sit there for months and months? Oh, you haven't? Well, I have, and the plant didn't die. It was happy as Larry, whoever he is. So take that as rather limited evidence that your guy will be fine. Now, I've been toying with the idea of whether we should use a fully established Monstera to make our water vase extravaganza, or whether we should take cuttings of existing plants and root them in the vase to then grow on into full plants. And to be honest, I'm leaning to the latter. But don't panic. Taking and rooting cuttings of Monstera is one of the simplest things you can do in the whole plant world. Even an idiot like me has rooted plenty of Monstera cuttings over the years, so it's dead simple. The reason I think this is better is because your established Monstera will need to adapt to the water and develop water roots anyway, so it'll take its time to adjust. So we might as well take cuttings to root in water, and once they have, we can just leave them to happily carry on growing in the vase. Plus, we have more control of the design too, as you'll see when we start building our vase. And in any case, we've created a brand new plant this way, and you get to keep your old one to carry on nurturing like the doting parent you are. You're getting more Monsteras for your buck. Happy days! Taking cuttings then. Like I said, it's dead simple, but there is one crucial thing to remember to make all of this work. You need to take top cuttings of your Monstera. All this means is that you need to find the last leaf that grew on the stem, usually at the top of the plant, and take a cutting of this. Don't lob off a big piece of stem with 5 or 6 leaves and then cut up into individual cuttings. The top cutting of a Monstera will not need to grow a new stem to continue leafing out. It will develop roots at the node, and then the new leaf will continue from the old petiole, and you keep all of those lovely fenestrations and perforations in the new leaf. The next cutting down, however, will need to grow a brand new stem from the node, because you basically cut its head off and it will revert back to a juvenile state, i.e. it won't have holes and slits in the leaves. Plus, it will look a bit ugly to have a leaf with a new stem shooting off the side in the vase. So stick to top cuttings. So, locate the node, the bit where the roots will sprout from, and make a nice clean cut just underneath. Simples. There may be some black aerial roots still attached, and this is when you know you're in the right place. These aerial roots will actually turn into the main root system of the plant, with secondary roots sprouting from that, once we pop them in the water. But if they are looking a bit long and unruly, then don't be afraid to trim them back. You won't harm the plant. You now need to choose something to display your masterpiece. I pick up these glass vases from my local charity shops or thrift stores if you're in the US, and you can always pick them up pretty cheap. And the world is your oyster, my plant friend. You can use anything. But here's a cheeky tip from me though. Choose one with straight sides and not one that tapers into a narrow neck too much. A narrow neck will make it hard to pull the plant out further down the road when you need to upsize your vessel. You see, Monstera roots are chunky monkeys and grow pretty darn quick, and you'll have a hard time pulling it out of a vase with a tapered neck in a couple of years. So I've gone for this guy. Pretty simple, but it will look great when all is said and done. I like to channel my inner sommelier and give it a sparkle and shine with a clean cloth. It's a centerpiece after all. Next is stones. Now, stones are completely optional. They provide no value to the plant other than to make it look pretty. By all means, you can just pop your cuttings into water and be on your merry way, but I like to add decorative stones. Not only does it look pretty, it also provides some support to the cuttings so that we can shape our masterpiece to our liking. I mentioned my snake plant earlier, and one of the lessons I learned from that project was to not use light coloured stones. Light, water and white stones equals algae, and lots of it. No, keep it black and dark beige and the algae problem isn't so much of an issue. And that's exactly what I've got here. A tub of nice black stones together with some beige ones I picked up in my local big box store. The stones will probably have bits of dust and dirt on them, so it's a good idea to give them a clean. The beige ones I'm using were particularly dirty, so I gave them a good wash in my sink. You don't want dirt and dust making the water cloudy. You can of course use lacquer, but I found it to be pretty dirty and will cloud the water over time, even if you get it sparkling clean at the beginning. If you are super concerned about algae, then another option is to use an opaque pot so the light can't get through to create all that green mess. But I like clear vases though. We've got pretty much everything we need now, so it's time to assemble our creation. Trust me, this will look so good that you'll want to share it with the world. And to help with that, you could easily make your own website to share your creations with the world through the help of today's video sponsor, Squarespace. If you didn't know, Sheffield Made Plants has its very own website, and using Squarespace to set it all up was a breeze. Believe me, I had no idea where to even begin, but Squarespace made it all so easy, with easy to use templates and tools to make it all look pretty and actually function like a website. Look, it's got blog posts with nifty tips and tricks to help you become a plant parent you always dreamed you'd be. We've all got things we'd love to share with the world, so why not head over to squarespace.com for a free trial to check it out for yourself and leave your mark on the world. When you're ready to launch your very own little empire, follow my link in the description down below to bag yourself a 10% discount off your first purchase of a website or domain. Happy creating! So as you can see, I layered the stones to give it some extra interest, but you can honestly go for any design that your heart desires. Feel free to dump all the stones in, it really doesn't matter. I also made sure all the leaves face more or less in the same direction too. It looks better this way. You do want the stems to be supported, but try not to bury the petioles too deep. This can potentially restrict new leaf growth, and having the water too high on the petiole can weaken it. But have a prod and a play until you get something you're happy with. It doesn't have to be perfect, mine certainly isn't. And I'm not particularly worried about my stone layering either. It'll all get jumbled up anyway further down the line. Once new leaves start to emerge and the whole thing bushes out, it'll look better and better. So we now need to add water. Fill her up until the stem nodes are fully submerged in water. This will promote root growth. And to prevent the build-up of algae, make sure you change the water weekly. Avoid this step at your peril, my plant friend. Just tip as much of it out as you can and then run fresh water over the top for a couple of minutes. Doing this will prevent the water becoming stagnant, which the roots won't like, and it will help prevent the whole thing from ponging too much. For the first few changes of water, you can just add good old tap water without worry, but further down the line, once the plants have developed roots, you'll need to start adding nutrients to the water. Roots normally draw on the nutrients in the soil of course, so our guy will be relying on you to provide it some food in the form of liquid fertilizer. And not just any old fertiliser, hydroponic fertiliser. I won't go into the science, but just know that regular houseplant feed just won't cut it. It needs to be specifically formulated for plants growing in water. And I'm using hydroponic houseplant focus rather than my regular houseplant focus. And I'm diligently following the instructions on the tub like a good boy. No trying to act like a hero and doubling the dosage for faster growth. It won't work, silly. And then we have pH. Now don't worry too much here, it's nothing too drastic, but water pH is actually pretty important for plants living in just water. The water you use needs to be neutral or slightly acidic, normally between 6 and 7.5. Remember the pH scale from your school days? Yeah, me neither, but if your water is too alkaline, which is above 7.5, then the plant won't be able to draw on the nutrients you'll be giving it. To keep it simple, I've bought these little test strips from Amazon because they're dead simple to use. Once you've made your water solution laced with fertiliser, dip one of these in and it will tell you the pH. If your water is too alkaline, then you'll need to buy something like pH down to bring it down and test again. Once you're in the sweet spot, you can add your water to the vase with gay abandon. And there she is, looking pretty, isn't she? All that's left to do is put her somewhere proudly in your home. Like I say, algae will be your worst enemy, so I'd aim for a medium light position and definitely not direct sun. This spot, right in the middle of my dining table, which is a good couple of metres from the window, should work well. I'm sure Mrs. Sheffield might have something to say about it when she gets back in from the office, but hey ho. What will happen now is the cutting will grow roots within a few weeks, and then a few weeks after that, new leaves should start to emerge from the petioles. The more it grows, the bushier this vase will look. And you know what the best thing about all of this is? No fungus gnats. Now I reviewed the growth of my snake plant vase one whole year later in a video, and there were a few surprises, so make sure you check it out by clicking on the link on the screen now.